Alrighty, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Good night, perhaps. I hope you guys are all doing well. I am super excited for this race, and I hope you guys are excited as well. So this is going to be our tournament semifinals. So this is between Tky and Mekacity, who is our number 1 and number 3 seeds coming into the race respectively. Mekacity has actually had some PBs since then, and has taken over second place on the leaderboard, so you know this is going to be a good one. Gonna go ahead and get my co-commentator in here. How are you doing today?
Hello everyone, I'm Ashma. I'm doing pretty fine, you know. As you just said, we are in the semifinals now with two of the best runners on the leaderboards going up against each other, so I am very excited for this one.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna get our racers kicked off and we can get going here. Alrighty. It is a good Saturday for some Cyber Shadow.
Definitely is. So, just to get this out of the way first, I suppose, you know, even though this is, I mean, you basically said it already, you know, this is Tky against Mekacity, the two top runners of this game at the moment. However, this is not the final race in the tournament yet, as there are going to be still others going to be shown after that. This is only the semifinals, so it's pretty exciting, you know, to see that even the two best runners are not in the finals themselves, as there are going to be more races after that. So we still have more for you guys coming up in this tournament right here.
Yeah, this is kind of like the match between Titans up in the winners bracket, which is what it's all boiled down to. This is not a down. This is a down but not out situation for these runners. So whoever takes the win today will move on to the finals. Whoever unfortunately comes in second will be knocked down to the lower bracket, but will have a chance for redemption. They will end up being in the finals of the lower bracket, and they will have a chance to face off against a different racer who is still to be determined. And then the winner of that race will then come back up to face off against the winner of this match in our finals, grand finals type of scenario.
And I mean, we're already getting right a treat here, like both runners like basically doing the same movements and the same screens. Tky ahead by just a hair, which might be you know, because of some latency issues or whatnot, but already Mekacity took the lead right from under him there. So yeah, they are basically setting up what we are going to see during the whole course of this run here. Like one death definitely will be the deciding factor during this race between these two guys, as you know, they are at each other's throat like right from the beginning here. So man, I don't even know what to say. I kind of just want to watch this unfold, you know, because this is one for the books, definitely.
Yeah, we've had a lot of races that could go either way, and we've seen a lot of close races, but I think this is kind of one of those races where you go into it just inherently knowing that something can happen to anyone because it's Cyber Shadow. Both of these racers know how to deal with situations should things go awry. Both of them really just have deadly consistency. She has been PBing like crazy lately, so times have just been coming down, and it's certainly possible for them to continue to do so as this tournament goes on. Tky's been putting in a lot of 54s lately, which is just bonkers when you consider the time overall. Has a 53 on the boards. I'm not 100% sure it's verified. I believe it got verified recently, actually. I'd have to double check. But yeah, just incredible paces and incredible potential from both of these racers. So it's really, I'm personally so excited for this one.
But as I said before, you know, consistency is key here. Even though their best times on leaderboards might be, you know, like 2 minutes apart or something, that doesn't mean anything during a race, because, you know, they still have to go up against the difficulty of the game itself. And we all know Cyber Shadow can screw you over pretty easily. So it's just going to come down to how consistent can they be during the race itself. You know, like I said, Mekacity put in a lot of work, he beat quite hard. Over the course of this tournament, not only in the tournament itself, but during his practice races, is now the number 2 on the leaderboards, took that place from 2C. So yeah, it's all in the cards here, and both players basically putting all the strategies down flawlessly. Now, Machia did not get the damage boost through the turret. They're losing a little bit of time, and is now a hair behind Turkey, but so far, pretty much flawless execution from the both of them.
Yeah, stage 1, the infamous stage of cycles. Really nice ledge clips by both of the runners, so both of them obviously playing at 60 FPS. It's anybody's game. These few seconds, this fluctuation can be something that we see vary throughout the entirety of it. So a few seconds here or there right off the hop does not mean anything at this point. We are, you know, less than 5 minutes into a 50-minute run.
Yeah, so Turkey is a little bit ahead on the Aperta fight, but basically both players will go for the same strategy where they just stand slightly outside Aperta's hitbox, getting a lot of hits, try to basically defeat him as soon as he goes over to the other side of the screen. And basically you just saw what happened there. You know, Machia got in a few more hits, didn't have to wait for Aperta to jump back into the air where he had to clip his toenails while he wasn't there. And basically both runners are pretty much evenly matched, like once more. So even though, you know, they are at the same point in the game, we have already seen quite a few takeovers happening. So, damn, this is like the treat for the weekend, boys and girls. This is it.
This is like the hidden gem, you know, all of the other folks are talking about like E3 and stuff like that, but this is where the real excitement is.
I mean, come on. With so many companies pulling out of E3 for various reasons, you know, at least the speedrunners here have the consistency to show up to the big tournaments. But yeah, we are already on to Chapter 2, the waste disposal facility, and already the difficulty is ramping up for both of the runners. Because even though they had to deal with quite a few cycles in the first chapter, now the game has the audacity to add, you know, instant death pits into the mix, which you can see with all these falling trash blocks all over the place. So, yeah, you know, death has ramped up, or the possibility for death has ramped up quite a bit here. So, let's hope some of our runners actually fall into any of these pits or get hit by this laser here.
High five in the bug room going in and out. Small difference to note right now is that Turkey opted not to pick up the SP upgrade while Machia did, so we're seeing a little bit of a difference here, and that's strictly because of that opting into the SP upgrade.
It's actually pretty interesting because we would have the rare opportunity here to see, you know, how the difference between the fighting strategies will now unfold. Because if I remember correctly, so far during every race in the tournament, every runner took the SP upgrade. I think Turkey is the first one to not do that in direct comparison. So yeah, you know, even more excitement to see how the boss strategies might differ just a little bit, because Machia does have a little more SP to use his abilities going into them.
I feel like that's very a second half strat. Like we enjoy the luxury of it now, but it's something that can really benefit you, I think, in second half. And of course, Mecha Dragon, having that extra rising fire, everything helps with Mecha Dragon.
Yeah, the big RNG factor coming on later in Chapter 4. But maybe it's just, you know, a good opportunity as any to talk about resource management in this game. Because, you know, not only do we have to manage our HP bar as pretty much in every game, we also have to manage our SP and our essence. Now, the SP is, of course, you know, our magic ability capabilities. It is the blue bar in the top left corner of the screen. And what that basically allows us is to use our special abilities that we acquire during the course of the game. One being like the shuriken that you can throw. Of course, you cannot throw any shuriken if you don't have any SP, and so on and so forth. And that gets drastically important in the latter half of the game when we have access to the dash ability. But I guess more on that when we're actually there. And the second factor is the essence. Now, the essence are these yellow-orangish particles that we sometimes pick up. And these basically allow us to buy sub-weapons and HP and SP regeneration when we come to a checkpoint, and that also will be a huge deciding factor in the later half of the game, because, you know, if you're not able to replenish your SP at critical moments, well, you are in a world of hurt from that point onward.
Yeah, most runners have kind of their primary strat, and then it's always good to have some form of a backup strat should things go awry or if you end up being a little bit short. You kind of have to know what you can do and what you can't do, especially later when you get the dash attack ability. That really kind of varies greatly. It seems like a small thing because it's like, oh, the difference is only that you dash slightly shorter and you don't keep the dash speed out of it, but like not having that ability to repeatedly chain it completely changes the way that we play. And we see that Turkey's on this scrambler.
Yeah, I mean, he is just been weaving in and out of all these cycles, basically getting everything pretty much going on just perfectly. He's almost inching ahead of Meshia more and more. And Scrambler is, of course, the end boss of the second area. He is actually a pretty, well, easy boss fight, I want to say, because he is wholly cycle-based. You know, he always goes through his ground smash ability, then he shoots you with a hand. He does that 3 times, after which he will jump and then repeat a cycle. And we just stay near him, jump over his abilities, and just, you know, thrash him down and as fast as we can. So there's not a lot that can go wrong in that fight compared to a lot of others. But, you know, you still just want to hug him, basically, and hit him repeatedly.
Yeah, Meshia had some good slashes in there, jumping up and chasing Scrambler in the air in the middle of his jumps overhead. So I feel like maybe even picked up a little bit of time on that fight there.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, he probably has to, as he is starting to fall a little bit behind Turkey. And if there is one thing that you can say about Turkey and him speedrunning this game is, you know, every time I watch one of his runs, I just think like, you know, this is how this is supposed to look in a way, because it looks so effortless in a way. You know, he's just basically weaving through everything. He only ever gets hit when he wants to get hit, at the precise moment he wants to get hit. And you just want to pick up the game and speedrun yourself until you notice, well, you know, this isn't as easy as he made it look. So this is definitely a false sense of comfort in a way. But, yeah, I mean, just look at it. I don't even know what to say about this gameplay, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, like, this is one of those games that at a top level is just so impressive to see, and it's only going to get more so later. So it's, you know, I'm happy that we put together the tournament because it really pushed a lot of people to continue playing, and I hope that folks got a lot of enjoyment out of that, and you know, it brought new eyes onto the game, and we've got new players and new interest because of it. I know Kyle Berry specifically kind of saw that the tournament was happening just after they decided to pick up the game, and they were really keen. And we know obviously they're still going strong. They're in the lower bracket at the moment, but they've been driving down their time. It's an amazing community effort, and that's, I think, the best way to describe what the experience of Cyber Shadow has been as a whole. Is like, if you look at the strats page in the Discord, if you look at these things that these runners are doing, this is not a single person effort by any means. This is a compilation of thoughts and ideas put together by so many people in the community, and it's really cool to see.
I mean, it's not only that, it's also the fact that, you know, I don't think we are yet at the point where you can say, okay, this is the definitive strategy for the whole game. You know, there are still some spots where improvements are still possible, like we just saw. I think Roll posted something for the climb at the end of the game that changes the thing up or makes it even a little bit faster. So there are still improvements that can happen. So, you know, even though those runners have put in the time, put in the effort and the strategies to make the times the best that they are, we still are not at the end of that. So I'm pretty excited already to see the, you know, improvements that are still to come here.
The game is very young.
Exactly. And yeah, let's maybe also talk a little bit about the game itself. You know, we just passed the Hunter's Tank boss fight with Turkey, Meshia just getting into it. And as the runners know, Hunter's Tank is basically a pretty projectile-intensive boss with all these turrets going on, while you're only trying to focus on the main part of the boss to quickly go through it. However, you still have to manage the projectiles by occasionally, you know, hitting the turrets to the sides, so just so they go back down into the tank and stop firing at you. Because even though if you defeat the boss, the projectiles still stay on screen and can even kill you after you've already defeated the boss. So we definitely do not want that to happen.
Yeah, Meshia knew where they were in the cycle there, and actually very wisely chose to pause before jumping down into that fireball section, and, you know, would have got hit right in the face and knocked into that pit, which is not the most terrible death to take, but it's still one that you can easily avoid at the cost of like a partial second by just hesitating. So it's always good to kind of recognize where you are on that coming out of that boss fight.
And Michia just passed one of the more scary parts in Chapter 3, where you have to jump over these fire pits with these, well, grenade dispensing flying robots over it. And with just some very precise shuriken throws, you can actually hit those because they will actually die in one hit. However, getting that first shuriken off is a very tight window that you have to manage, because the shuriken can get stuck on the ceiling or just basically miss the enemies. And it is always scary to not kill those two, because they can very easily just knock you into a pit and then you have to go back to the last checkpoint.
Panic can very much ensue.
Mm-hmm.
On to Biohunter. We saw Turkey picked up the swag blade there and is going to be using that to kind of hit with up and down movements here, along with some rising fire. We haven't touched on as most of you know, but anyone who doesn't yet, our sub-weapons do have HP. Just took one hit there. It's off to the left of the sub-weapon, so 3 hits and you lose your sub-weapon. And second phase, absolutely no trouble at all. Biohunter is not generally too daunting of a boss once you know it.
I mean, that is like a common theme, I think, with the bosses in this game. Like, if you go up against them, for the very first time, probably during your casual playthrough of the game, they can kill you very, very quickly. However, once you basically figure out the strategy, it is amazing to see how fast you can actually get through every single boss fight in this game, up to the point where you think they are actually laughable opponents. However, they definitely are not. So even though they look easy in the speedrun, you just have to know that all of our runners have basically practiced them over and over and over again to make them look that easy. But yeah, just try it out for yourself and you will definitely see how deadly they can be.
So Antelope in chat kindly calling out the time difference in the Cyber Shadow new official metric of time measurement, which is they are 1 Biohunter apart at the moment.
I just love that metric. I think it has come up somewhere earlier doing another race in this tournament, and it fits. It definitely does. But onto a little bit of the swag blade strategy. Now you actually want to bring this swag blade into this section of the game, into this cave here, because as you can just see at Michia's side, he uses the swag blade to shoot it upward, and there you saw the detonation, because what he does is he detonated some TNT that is mounted to a wall in the cave, and the swag blade, because it can hit through a wall or a platform or whatever, you are able to basically engage this TNT from below. And so when you now go ahead and want to escape the cave, the wall is already exploded, so you can go out there a little bit quicker. Michia now in the infamous monkey climb. This is actually, the flip side of bringing the swag blade here, because you want to climb this tower as fast as you can by using the airstrike and your other abilities to pogo off of these lanterns and the boxes and whatnot. However, the swag blade has the tendency to go ahead and destroy those very things, so you actually have to manage your yo-yo of death here to not do that if you don't want it to do. So yeah, even though you were able to detonate the TNT quicker, you now have to be careful to not lose time during the climb, because you still have the yo-yo there.
Yeah, and Turkey, being a PS4 player and being on old patch, had to deal with the swag blade not only killing the boxes but the lanterns as well. Michia being on PC and the most recent patch at least didn't have to deal with swag blade destroying the lanterns, but still had to deal with the swag blade potentially destroying the boxes. Oh, missed the pogo there. A little bit too high.
I think this is actually one, basically chapter 4 is the chapter where the game basically, takes off the training wheels and, wants, good execution from you, because there are a lot of things that you can now do, like, hitting these switches with your shuriken from far away, so you don't actually have to go where you need to. Also, there are, not maybe as many death pits itself in Chapter 4 as compared to Chapter 3. However, there are a lot of instant death spikes all over the place all of a sudden. And couple that with the fact that all of the enemies, or most of the enemies, now deal 2 points of damage every time they hit you. And Chapter 4 is becoming pretty deadly pretty fast for all runners here. Now, Chucky going into the first of the VR sections, those will crop up from time to time. And the nice thing about that is normally you would have to go through the whole VR area to hit a switch at the end so you can progress in the real world. However, for some reason, in this particular VR section, you only have to hit the right trigger to open the door in the real world. You do not have to go to the other side and hit that trigger as well. So, of course, we make use of that in the speedrun setting here. And Nishi are now having a little bit of trouble with the... How are those things actually called? Like this spiky column tower thingies that you have to hit its eye. And he took his first death, putting him quite a ways behind because this is one of the longest and or biggest rooms in chapter 4. So it's definitely quite a bit of time lost there now.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about this death here is, this is pre-dash, so every death that's further from the checkpoint is going to be more consequential than it would be late game per se. But then you're also dealing with, as you said, whatever these things are called here. And it's going to have to strike this and go down this, small pillar again. And it's just like, gonna see probably a little shaken. I would imagine if Machia normally goes for Nutter Strap, is probably not going to do so. But we'll see, I guess.
I mean, this is basically the psychological factor that is coming into play in these races here. Because, if you're just playing or speedrunning this game by yourself, you're your only opponent at this point. But if you are in a race, well, you do know that somebody else is basically doing or having to go through the same thing as you do. And if you've mess something up, they might or might not. And she's taking a second down there. Oh my god.
And they got the Nutter Strat too, so they went for the really difficult thing. It was done, and then the normal slash and then pogo off the enemy just didn't pan out as intended. And yeah, that's unfortunately, I think, something that just is, anyone will get rattled when playing this game, and that happens.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've seen that during other races in the tournament, where after taking a death, some players were just taking a breather at the checkpoint when they respawned, getting, the blood flowing again and reducing the heart rate and whatnot, so you can actually continue playing this game. And this will definitely put Mishia quite a ways behind Turkey now, who still is on his flawless crusade through the reactor here. He is nearly upon Mecha Dragon, who is, of course, a pretty big RNG factor in the run. So he will take up the Charge Blaster, which is the sub-weapon that we opt to take here, as it allows him to attack from afar. And we will now see if Chucky actually will get a 2-cycle, maybe a Mecha Dragon, if not, hopefully a 3-cycle. And if all else fails, well, there's always the 4-cycle to go for.
I think once we get to the 4-cycle, we can just call it a 4+, just out of respect.
Probably, definitely. Now, he didn't get as much damage in during the first phase as he probably would, so yeah, this will definitely be a 3-cycle as we just saw. So, that gives Mishia a little bit of an opportunity to catch up to him again. Woo. And he just got the 3-cycle, very nice. Mishia also getting the, very scary drop down, because this is one of the rooms that is like another equalizer, I want to say, because if you know that your movement basically has been flawless throughout the whole of this room, you can go for the drop that you saw both runners do here, where you just drop down between these platforms of the moving circle enemies and all the instant death spikes, and you can only basically make this drop if your movement has been flawless through the room until that part, because otherwise you will get hit by the floating enemies and get basically hit back into the instant death spikes, and well, that's back to the checkpoint for you.
Turkey getting a lot of very outside spawned ninjas and having to deviate a little bit from crystal damage to deal with those, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's all luck, of course, what you get in that pattern, and the whole idea is each ninja that spawns decreases the crystal's overall HP, so the faster you do that, the less of them that you have to fight. The problem with them spawning on the outside is, especially if you don't have shurikens to use, you basically end up having to deviate away from doing that damage, and if you don't, they block for a long time.
Yeah, it's definitely always heartbreaking to see one of these ninjas actually land on the ground and then just continuously blocking your attacks, and there's just basically nothing you can do about it. So, Yeah, you definitely want to see those ninjas being a little bit more clustered around the crystal here. And I just want to go on record here to say that I actually do want Turkey to have a little bit of bad RNG in the run, just so that Mishia can catch up a little bit. Because, you know, I'm in for a bit more of an exciting race. Mishia is starting to sadly be a little bit behind. Not saying that he is not able to catch up, but, you know.
Wow, that was a heck of a first cycle.
To head to go for the jugular, man.
Platform's not playing as nice. Gets in the middle. Let's see. Oh no, got bullied by the platform. That was easily a 2-cycle had that platform spawn not been there. First cycle did more than the first bar of damage.
Now, the thing that you have to keep in mind is that Meshia is down to 1 HP as well, so you know you have to take this fight a little bit more safe, and also he lost his charge blaster, so he is not able of long range attacks anymore unless he uses a shuriken, which will make the coming fight against the Krista and the ninjas actually a little bit more, not necessarily complicated, but he will have to be on his toes a little more. Also, it will take him a little bit more time to get rid of these flames, unless of course he just goes ahead and throws a shuriken.
Turkey had a decent fight there. 2 hits left on the charge blaster, so for the upcoming skip, as many of our runners know, you're going to want to have as much buffer as you can on the HP of your sub-weapon of choice, whether it be the charge blaster carried from the Mecha Dragon fight, or failing that, the E-field that you can purchase before the boss that we just saw. You want to hold that so you can do a skip that saves about 25 seconds and potentially a second skip afterwards. So you basically need to see our runners carry this for the duration. They're going to be hitting a switch through a wall if everything goes well, and if not, well, you're going to see some respects in chat for the sub-weapons lost.
Just want to emphasize how devious like this trick really is, because you have to basically bring your sub-weapon from Chapter 4 through the end boss fight of Chapter 4 through most of Chapter 5, basically without taking any damage. And Chapter 5 is another chapter where it is very easy to just get hit from off-screen, because all these purple enemies are basically programmed to just bully you. Like all over the place, you know. They are programmed in a way to anticipate your movements, to get in your way. They are able to shoot projectiles at you. They are basically all over the place, so it is very hard. It just cannot be understated how hard it is to get through any of these sections damageless. And even, you know, 1 or 2 hits means that you will lose your sub-weapons, and you won't get this juicy about 30-second time save anymore, and our runners definitely do want that. You can see on Mishia's side, he is opting to go for the E-field instead of the charge blaster. Now the E-field is able to absorb projectiles in front of you, and you can also fire off the shield as a projectile of your own once it is fully loaded. So it basically allows you to have just a little bit more of a defensive option going through Chapter 5, because you can absorb those projectiles. However, it also makes it a little bit more, well, basically hard to get through the boss fight later on, as we will see if he manages to get to Alpha 1, which we can actually see over on Turkey's side.
Yeah, Turkey demonstrating the skip there. There's slight variations in the skip, but overall, it's the same premise with both. I think it's kind of neat because it's one of the few, I think, we can call it modestly a sequence break, and like I'm using that very modestly.
Yeah.
It skips a small loop, let's face it, and the other one skips an even less substantial point. But it's nice to have something to go for in the run that can be a little bit extra, we'll call it spice, flavor, something like that. And it adds a little excitement through this chapter, and also ramps up the nerves.
It definitely does. I mean, for everyone who doesn't know, you can only ever buy a specific sub-weapon at specific save points or checkpoints. And you can neither get the charge blaster nor the E-field in Chapter 5. You can only get them in Chapter 4. So if any of our runners were to lose this specific sub-weapon, they would not be able to go for that skip anymore. So it is mandatory, if you want to get this skip, to go through the sections damageless. Now, Mishia getting a little bit bullied, only having 1 HP remaining on the E-field. So yeah, getting a bit dicey for him there, as Chucky still has 2 HP on his charge blaster. And, Turkey has also already gotten the first skip there, so Good luck to Mishia to preserving his E-field here.
Turkey also took out Alpha 1. I promise Alpha 1 does have some form of boss theme music. It's more than just a little intro jingle he has, but you just if it goes well, you don't get to see it. Worth noting as well, our runner's last reward or upgrade that they got in the last stage was the parry. So the parry ability allows them to charge, or allows them to parry projectiles, as well as some non-projectile but still energy type of base things. Mishia unfortunately taking a death there and losing the E-field as well. Definitely seems a little bit kind of shaken. I imagine the first couple deaths has kind of rattled them.
Yeah, checking out onto Alpha 2. Now, Alpha 2 is basically where you perfect your parries, as Struzzy just mentioned. And what you basically do to do a parry is you basically press the direction button in the direction that the projectile is coming from just before it is about to hit you. So you're basically opening yourself up a little bit in order to get this parry. So it is very timing focused. And if you don't get the specific timing for the projectile, well, you're just gonna get hit and eat that damage. And that makes Chapter 5 all the more, sinister in a way, because you do have to get these parries to go through a lot of its sections. However, you still want to keep your sub-weapon, so,
I feel like that was the first one cycle Alpha 2 of the tournament.
And now you actually have to see Mishia, because he does not have the Charge Blaster or the E-field. You'd actually have to go all the way around there, taking yet another death trying to do that, because he is not able to go through the shortcut, which basically straight up leads him to Alpha 1 there, so... Oh, he is just falling behind more and more there. A little bit heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, I know. I think this might be one of those things where, like, it's a big race. Like, we think it's a big race, but could you imagine being in Mishia's position where you're knowing your opponent is Turkey, it's the semifinals, and you've kind of worked hard and prepped to get here. Like, anybody can get into that mindset and feel those nerves kick in. So all the respect in the world, going to continue to see it through, and hopefully is going to turn the tide, and we're going to see Mishia back on the horse in terms of strats and feeling comfy again. But it can straight up happen to anyone. It's Cyber Shadow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is what I was trying to say in the beginning of the race, that doing a race in this kind of game is wholly different from just doing a PB attempt, because you have this extra stress of going up against another person that is doing basically the same motions as you in a way. And, they are good because they are in this tournament. They have come this far. So, they are good, and that can definitely stress you out, especially if you do make mistakes and things just start snowballing from there, as seems to be happening at Mishia's side there.
And I mean, if you want to demonstrate that point, it's worth noting that Turkey still has 2 health on that Charge Blaster from back in Chapter 4 after the Mecha Dragon. That means has not taken a hit, because it came into Chapter 5 with 1 damage to the Charge Blaster, so has not taken a hit since the start of Chapter 5.
Yeah, that is insane. And he is now at the end of Chapter 6 against Tunnel Cleaner. So, he might as well bring this Charge Blaster into Chapter 7 even. That is just crazy to think about. He is really, bringing this Charge Blaster for a stride across the whole game, maybe. So let's see. Definitely starting to root for Charge Blaster Chan here.
I think he tried to lose it intentionally because he bumped his toe there. I might have thrown off the attempt to cluster those bombs there for Tunnel Cleaner, but that might have been intentional, because I think I saw a little intentional damage bump into the boss.
Yeah, I think so too, which is actually interesting, because I wouldn't know why, to be honest. Because if he would pick up another sub-weapon, he would lose it anyway.
My only thought is maybe if, when trying to cluster the bombs, accidentally slash towards the boss and hit the eyeball with the blaster, which would cause the eye to close and then kind of throw you off cycle. So maybe just didn't know how to deal with having that extra utility, didn't want to fling an extra charge shot at the wrong time, and just said, you know what, we don't need this.
Good point. Yeah, I don't know. Has anybody ever managed to bring it this far before? Because I definitely cannot remember it. But anyway, Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is basically a death trap. Like, runs come here to die, as the game is very sinister in this chapter, because now that Turkey has the dash ability, as you can see him use that like basically everywhere from now on, SP management is going to be critically important for the whole rest of the game here, because how the dash functions is you are now not able to run fast while you are running and you attack. Basically you do this, well, dash attack, as you can see over at Turkey side. And if you do not have any SP, you will actually, lose your speed and have to start dashing again. However, if you do have SP, not only will a dash be longer, it will also have this blue after image, and you will continue running or basically keep your speed after one dash. And that not only allows you to chain dashes, it also allows you to do all kinds of crazy things over all these pits and whatnot. So you definitely do want to keep all of your SP and to keep doing that. And that is why we pick up this SP dispenser, as Turkey just did here. And what that basically does is, what its name implies, it will gradually refill all of your SP one at a time. So in a way, Turkey has infinite SP as long as he does not get hit 3 times and loses the dispenser. And we just saw Turkey basically go through 2 chapters back-to-back damage less. So that he is probably going to keep that dispenser for a very long time.
Yeah, it's going to go from an SP dispenser to an Essence dispenser. Assuming that he's able to take it through to the auto-scrolling sections with EXO. Hopefully that'll come true and we can explain and demonstrate that a little bit later.
And now, Mishia also got the dash mechanic. He is now making his way out of Chapter 5 into Chapter 6. And that is basically, the first usage of the dash ability. I mean, Chapter 6 is basically designed around the fact that you now have the dash, and it tries to demonstrate how to use it the best way possible. Quick aside, I hated Chapter 6 on my first playthrough of the game because I just could not wrap my head around the usage of the dash. And that is basically the point where I started to lose interest in the game a little bit, because I could not get it to work. But once it clicks, once you know how to use it and how it works, it just makes the game such a joy to play. Like, it is phenomenal. Like, I mean, this ability is basically what the game is about in the end, right?
I feel like the dash ability is one of those things that it has a learning curve, as you mentioned, and then it's strange because after you get used to playing the later levels and after you get used to having the double jump, which we see Turkey grabbing here, he's going to get his double jump, he's going to get his charged abilities, things of that sort. Essentially, it's going to become fully upgraded and powered up. When you get used to playing with the double jump and then you have to go back to playing these couple stages where you have the dash but don't have the double jump, it throws you off. So then you have this whole different learning curve again where you kind of have to go back to optimizing and go, okay, I don't have the double jump here for this brief duration that I have the dash until we reach the dragon.
Yeah, this definitely has never happened to anybody who forgot that he doesn't have the double jump and just straight up wallowed into a pit, right?
Never.
Nobody has ever done that.
Never.
Because, yeah, not only are you able to chain your dashes, now that Chucky has the double jump, you can also chain double jumps and dashes. So you can go, crazy far during this whole section. You can just see him blitz through all these stages like it is nothing. But keep in mind, you do need SP to do that. However, there's another trick with the dash, which is as long as you have SP and you kill an enemy with your dash, they will actually drop SP for you. So you basically have, infinite SP as long as you can keep chaining those. So, as we said, it is critically important for you to have SP in the latter half of the game here.
Yeah, it's really kind of a risk versus reward thing too, because the first thing you want to do when you get dash, obviously, is to use it and to go fast. And then you quickly learn that until you know the landscape that you're dealing with, the game very much punishes you for wanting to go fast and not knowing how to properly. So it's kind of one of those things that it's great when you get the hang of it, but when it goes wrong, it generally goes really wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's called a dash. Of course, you want to use a dash to go fast. So your basic instinct is, okay, I'm running along this straight corridor. I would just dash along the whole of it, and then you have no SP anymore. And well, that's basically it. You know, you've lost your chance to go fast in the sections where it actually matters. Unless, of course, you have a SP dispenser or something along for the ride, but you probably don't. So yeah, it's, you know, a bit of a false security, I want to say.
Mishi is going for some Orbiter strats, which Turkey did not use. Some selected runners will pick up the Orbiter, and it's kind of even more lucrative and more rewarding now that we have the SP dispenser, as you can see on Turkey's side, dispensing Essence. So we've learned ways that we can use this and our normal Essence route to end up with a little bit of padding, provide some comfort for the end. If you want to invest early, you can opt into this short-lived Orbiter, which is shortly going to be replaced with that same SP dispenser. But kind of as long as you're comfortable with the idea that you're going to be okay with your money route, you can grab this, and it's super handy to have, especially for the knock-knocks, which were the little walls that we defeated earlier.
And having that extra essence after the auto-scroller just, you know, gives you a little bit more of a comfort zone, I want to say, at the end game. Because you definitely do not want to go without an SP dispenser, if at all possible, for the end game, or with SP at all. And just having that little bit more essence that you can spend at a checkpoint definitely, you know, is a little bit of comfort that you can just give yourself if you manage to bring the SP dispenser into that.
Yeah, there's even a specific moment immediately after in which it's useful because post cutscene it leaves us with 1 HP, and our runners will typically opt to either immediately take a death to put them back at 5 or save and quit, which will also have the same effect. But if you've got the luxury of that extra padding, well, then you can just buy the full health refill, and you'll be able to tackle one of the most notoriously difficult rooms in the run with even more health. So it's definitely immediately rewarding if you happen to carry this through into the auto-scroller sections.
I mean, that's also one of the things that definitely differentiates this game from, say, its spiritual predecessor, Ninja Gaiden, in that the way that, you know, in Ninja Gaiden, you basically start the game out with all of your maximum HP, whereas in Cyber Shadow, you do not. You can pick up, I think, about 10 upgrades for both your HP and SP. However, during the course of the run, we only ever pick up like 5 upgrades for our HP, so we could get 5 more. However, it would take ludicrous amount of time comparatively in a speedrun. So we actually finished the run at not full power, so to speak. And since the enemy damage just keeps ramping up, because it considers that you would have had picked up all those upgrades, the game, you know, also gets harder a little bit because we do not have this extra HP to tank more hits.
This boss is basically scripted. It's not fully scripted in the fact that you can deviate from what you're doing and it will show up in different spots, but we have this down to basically if you jump to the right sections, you can always lure or bait the ship into the same spots, and it's fully the same result every time.
And don't forget to attack aggressively, as Exo just calls out at the beginning of that fight. Nice little Contra reference there. And you can just see on Chucky's side that the SP dispenser, because he doesn't have full SP, just keeps on dispensing that essence to him. Like, he's now at 200 essence, which gives him a nice, comfy bank to fall back to in the late chapters of the run.
Yeah, unless things were to go disastrous, like, he's not even going to be able to necessarily spend that plus all of the money he's naturally going to make along the way at this point. Like, you basically finish your extra funding and padding with the first trip through, so if you happen to keep the SP dispenser through this part, you're kind of just laughing and being like, I'll spend everywhere.
I mean, can we just appreciate the fact that this SP dispenser is still at full health, meaning that Jackie basically took no damage between where he picked it up in Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. Unless he bought a new one and I didn't catch on to that.
He did not.
I don't think he did.
Can we also appreciate that this SP dispenser is more resilient than Exo? Womp womp.
Rip Exo. F's in chat, please. You know, our bike slash trusty mecha suit just bit the dust, and we are also left with 1 HP, which is now the point which you briefly touched upon, where you can now at this particular checkpoint either resolve to pay the 50 essence to have it refill your whole HP bar, or you can do just a quick save and quit, which will put you at 5 HP, because 5 is the HP value which you actually start the game with. So that is why you will be put onto that. But yeah, this part of Chapter 8, and we are still in Chapter 8 here, is basically the hardest part of it. Like, this room where Turkey is now is just one giant death trap, because there are a lot of enemies, if you trigger the alarms, that can really easily kill you, as they all deal 2 points of damage or even more. And, us having only 9 points of HP at this point means 5 hits and you're basically done. At the best of times.
That was, you ran into a little trouble there, but that room that you were just talking about was just spot on. Had a beautiful parry at the very end, didn't take any damage going through it. Took 2 hits, unfortunately, a moment ago, but SP Dispenser is still alive. We'll see how long that's going to continue to get carried through here.
Over on Meshia's side, you can see that he is now in the auto-scroller. However, he does not have the dispenser anymore, so that is a lot of essence that he now will be losing out on. So I suppose he won't be going for the full HP refill at the end of that section. Instead, probably going for the save and quit, but I guess we'll see when we get there.
Yeah, our runners are ultimately planning for wanting an SP dispenser for the last boss, and the multiple phases that go along with that, which is a 50 essence investment. In certain scenarios, if you arrive with no SP and you have the extra 50, you'll usually dump one into a SP refill as well, because you want to have full SP to start that fight. When you mash through the text boxes beforehand, if you were going into it technically with 0, you don't end up with full SP before the end of those text boxes. So if you have the luxury of the extra 50 and you're looking at over 100 total, usually you'll dump into both sides and you'll be like, alright, full SP dispenser, let's go. But yeah, this is kind of why Turkey is laughing at this point. He's going to be able to invest, if you wanted to, into extra SP dispensers along the way, SP refills, anything like that. Basically only needs 100 of what he has now, and the rest is just all extra.
But he's now actually coming into Chapter 9. And Chapter 9 does one thing. It basically prepares you for Chapter 10. Because what we'll see here now is that long stretches of Turkey going with the dash over a pit full of water, so to speak. And what that basically prepares you for is there will be long stretches of basically bottomless pits that you have to go through with your dash in Chapter 10. So, take the time and practice that, because you won't just die in Chapter 9 when you do that, aside from the mines if they hit you, but Chapter 10 is just instant death.
Looking at chat, I see Mini calling out the door skip, so I'm assuming that Shia got the door skip on the right-hand side before Ecto 2.
So what can happen there is you see these orange barriers with the 3 turrets shooting out of it, and what you can do is, if you manage to pick one of these green flying enemies, if that basically overlaps with the hitbox of that door enemy, you can dash through it by the way that the dash will actually target the hitbox of the green flying enemy, allowing you to basically skip through the door enemy. So it is a little bit, well, what's the word, hard to set up, but if you get it, you at least don't have to do that fight, because it is a little bit on treacherous ground. You can very easily die there, so if you get it, that's at least a good 10 seconds or so, I want to say, that you can save. So yeah, I think Meshia is starting to get back into this race now.
Turkey's on a boat.
On a boat. Slow. Boat. Slow. Boat.
Honestly, solid run overall. Turkey doesn't run with splits, being somebody that streams directly from PS4, so we have no idea what his pace is actually in reference to his PB at the moment. Usually, I believe he'll do things like you can have there's an elapsed stream time thing when you stream directly from PS4, and I believe normally what he tries to do is like starting runs exactly on a certain minute and does the mental math along the way. But I unfortunately, we have no idea when that is, and that's not going to align with anything in terms of when the race kicked off, so we're just going to have to see what this pace ends up looking like at the end. But very, very nice run overall. Not really too many major errors that we've called out on Turkey's side, and no deaths as of yet. And I'm sure I'm going to pay for making that comment.
I mean, he just got the fast boat, so I guess it's looking pretty good for him. So what can happen at the end of this boat ride is, we don't know why it happens or why it doesn't happen, but once you've killed all the enemies and the game decides to proceed to the next section, is basically random in the fact that you can either get it instantly or you have to wait about 10 seconds for it to happen. So, you know, we started to chant slow boat to make the fast boat happen. You know, a little bit of reverse psychology going on there. And yeah, Turkey actually got the fast boat, so let's hope that Mashia does too. Also, he just killed another boss, Combinatron. I mean, you basically saw how fast that fight goes, so yeah.
Combinatron's either the best or the worst boss, depending on how it goes. It's really easy to, if you're planning on doing the parries, for example, with some of those parries, but you can also attack too fast, and Mashia had posted a clip of that a while back, where we basically have a planned fight for how we want to handle the Combinatron, and you want to bait out an attack once it reaches a certain point of its health. There we go. I paid for that comment earlier. Didn't take long. So we bait out a certain amount of health, but then you let it start an attack so it doesn't heal itself once you lower its health a little bit more. The thing about this is, if you then don't finish it off by the end of that attack, it goes into healing mode, and the entire fight is going to become dreadful, and most runners will opt to take a death.
Yeah, because at the point where Combinatron starts healing itself, you might as well just restart it, because if you would have to kill the hands as well, the fight would just drag on and on and on, so you basically just want to reset it to go for another chance at the quick kill. And yeah, Chucky now took his first death in Chapter 10, a little bit unfortunate there, as I think he bonked on the top platform of the turret, lost his dash, and since he was above a bottomless pit, he basically just fell into that with no chance of recourse there, but it was still, you know, kind of close to a save point, so not a lot of time lost there for him.
Yeah, it's probably, I guess, one of the quickest deaths that you can take in this chapter. This chapter is longer than Chapter 9. You're going to fight 2 bosses in it, and neither of them are the last boss. Coming to the second boss here, we're going to see Spider Rail. There's a couple different ways that you can approach this fight. Basically, we're looking to damage the eye, which you can see he's throwing kunais, and then sending back some onion rings. Very nice. But yeah, the kunais damage the Spider Rail eye despite the fact that it's closed, so we can get in some extra damage there. If you damage him down quick enough, you can force the onion rings, which do an amazing amount of parry damage just because of how many there are.
Did Spider Rail even move?
I don't think it did. It was dead center, I'm pretty sure, when he finished it.
Oh my god, poor Spider-Rail, just getting bullied by each and every one of us. But Turkey now in the climb, which is basically the most, or one of the most treacherous sections of the game, because, you know, so far we have had a lot of sections where we just go from left to right, which is easy enough with the dash and all of our other abilities. Now at the end of the game tasks us with climbing this huge tower like 3 times in a row. And there are a lot of enemies who are just programmed that way to send you all the way back to the beginning, to the ground here. But Chucky is having none of it. He is executing this pretty much flawlessly, and he is now up to the last 3 bosses of the game already. Holy smokes.
Yeah, that was incredibly clean for a climb. Like, there's no moment he wasn't moving upwards.
And, you know, we already said that it looks easy what Chucky does, but it absolutely is not. It takes a lot of practice to get it as clean as he just demonstrated here. And even though the apparitor fight, you know, it's just another boss fight that was basically done in the blink of an eye. And again, you really have to be really fast on your reflexes here, on your execution, to getting all these dashes in to defeat this boss as quickly as he just did. Now he's into the first apparitor fight, and there are a couple of different strategies that you can do here. First, you always have to remove his shield by, you know, attacking it in some way, which will actually bounce you back quite a ways. And most runners, or a couple runners, just go for the Rising Fire strategy, where you pelt him with a lot of Rising Fires, as they do quite a bit of damage to him. What also you can do is he shoots out these homing flames that shoot projectiles up into the air, which you can then use as a parry projectile to shoot that back at progenitor, sorry, which deal a lot of damage. And he basically killed all 3 bosses before I was even done explaining that. So that fight was just yeah, I mean, pre-G's for Turkey, because he isn't quite done yet, but
he crushed it. Like, start to finish, there was that one short death. It's worth noting that Meshia came up with a lot of the strats that we saw Turkey just demonstrate in that Pro Gen 2 phase. Those are fairly new strats, and it's something that Turkey more recently adopted in more recent PBs. The dash back and forth, I know, is something he's been working on, and then especially the charged pogos, which are able to actually reach him when he's up at the very top of the screen. So very beautiful demonstration of how that fight looks front to back if everything goes exactly the way you want it.
And the other stream with Meshia, you can actually see that, not having the essence from the SP dispenser from the auto-scroller bites him a little bit in the behind here, as he does not have any SP to go through Chapter 9 here, which makes this an excruciating experience, as you basically have to, not use the dashes. You have to come up with some other strategy to go through the whole section there, and that can be a very painful and slow experience. So he's still hanging on, but he's definitely having more trouble getting through this than Turkey had at his side. And Turkey has now finished his run, so GG's to him with a 53-46, I think it was.
46 is his PB. It was a 53.50 in race time, and it was a 53.49 on my timer. But yeah, that's like 3 or 4 seconds from world record, and he had a death.
God.
So had he not died, he would have just actually set a new record.
Oh my god. I mean, what else can you want from a run like this other than, not having this one death, of course. But holy crap. The consistency on display there is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, like, I can't even fathom that. Like, he's the only one with a 53 to begin with, so, like, that alone is just amazing. But then, to have it that close to his time with the death, I imagine he's going to join us in chat after a moment. He usually likes to take a breather or a quick break after he finishes out the run before he hops in for an interview. But that was, like, peak Cyber Shadow, folks. That was world record pace for pretty much the entirety of the run, with the smallest of errors that cost it from being a new one in front of your eyes. That's just, I don't have words.
I mean, I was trying to do commentary here, but then I always took like a quick look at Turkey's side, and everything just lost my mind there. Like, I don't even know what to say anymore sometimes. It was just that good of a run. Like, holy smokes. Huge respect to the guy. Can't wait to see what he has to say once he comes in here. And, yeah, on the other side, Meshia also getting a fast boat. So, at least, both of them got it, because it can definitely be, well, a little bit of a time difference, of course, if one of our runners gets the fast boat and the other one doesn't, but both of them got it, so good thing. And now Meshia, also in the spaceport, now bought another SP dispenser to help him through Chapter 10 here and the Combinatron fight. So let's see if he will be lucky or not, as he does try to go for the fast, or the very fast kill against Combinatron here. It's looking a bit sketch, but he got it. Okay, so Combinatron actually was not able to heal himself, as in that aforementioned clip where, he was not in an attack animation, actually did that, as Meshia showed us. But yeah, Meshia now having a SP dispenser through Chapter 10, so it should be smooth sailing from him from here on out as well. We've seen what the difference that can do in Chapter 9 if you don't have a SP dispenser, compared to what he does here now. So he will also go through long stretches of basically no solid ground under him in Chapter 10. Flawless execution so far. So let's hopefully he can keep that up during the rest of this chapter.
We're joined by Turkey, who just put on an absolute phenomenal display for us. How are you feeling about that?
I'm still trying to figure out what happened.
What happened with the one death, or somehow how you came so close to your existing PB despite said death in a race?
Just everything. To put it simply, prep going into this was going a little up and down. Let's put it that way. I was a bit concerned going into this one, and I knew I needed to pull something off to even keep up with Meshia, let alone beat him. And then that just happened. Like, okay then.
I guess mission accomplished.
That's one way of putting it, I guess. But yeah, just went for it. My early game suffered a little bit, nothing major, but I the general nerves. Then it all started coming together for the most part, and then the second half of Chapter 8 through Chapter 9 was nervy. It's probably a good way to put it. Kept it alive though, and then I took that death, and then just like, yeah, okay, that's fair. And so I go, just carry on pushing, see what you can get, and then the rest just went well. So.
Yeah, we were mentioning that obviously streaming directly from PS4 that you didn't have splits displayed, but we knew that the pace was really strong. We knew that the death that happened was relatively quick because it was just almost immediately after a checkpoint. So it wasn't that big of a time sink. But we were watching, we were just like, this is going to be a thing.
It was close to it. Yeah, I was thinking about it, but once I got past Chapter 9, it was like, I'm actually possibly on pace first to be a new PB, but I'm not too sure exactly. It depends on how the rest goes. As soon as the climb went well, it was like, okay, there we go then.
Yeah, the climb, I was actually just going to say, your climb was beautiful. It was so fast that there was no errors. You really didn't stop moving throughout the duration. Overall, your whole Chapter 10 seemed really good. Spider Rail was by the books. He sent back the onion rings. Didn't even move from the start, from the middle position. Front to back, man, just big props. It was an amazing display.
Speaking of the climb, Meshia is actually in the climb right now. He had a little bit of trouble at some points, and what he did there was he's actually went back into the previous room just so he could reset all the enemies' position back to their original, because, as long as you know where these enemies are, because you do know that when they are on their initial positions, you can make the climb go fast, but once you are in this room for a little period of time, the enemies can basically go everywhere because they're programmed to intercept you. That is why it's a little bit safer to basically just go ahead and reset the room so you know where those, little miscreants are going to spawn.
Yeah, Turkey, it was really close off the hop. You guys basically ended Chapter 1 at the same time. You'd lost a little bit of time in the operator fight, and Meshia got all the damage right off the bat and then got the immediate toenail clip, and you guys synced up. And then had a little bit of an unraveling moment, had a few back-to-back deaths, I think, possibly nerves or something like that. Back half has been much better, thankfully. I got back on the horse and kind of everything, came together since then. But it was a little bit unfortunate because you guys were dead synced out of 1, and then just those few deaths and those, Cyber Shadow doing what Cyber Shadow does.
Oh yeah, no, the Cyber Shadow is just a thing. When one thing goes down, it can all go down. It's quite a nasty run. It's pretty much down to momentum. If the momentum starts to drop, that's when things just go completely petong. Yeah, Apparator can pretty much shove it from that first match, because I was surprised that I missed the clip, because usually I have the right positioning at least for the first toenail clip, and it just went nope. So okay, back up, nope. Oh god, let me try the third one, nope.
Yeah.
So at that point I was a little worried. I was like, okay, just put it behind you and move forward.
Also, Pre-Gs for Meshia now just defeated Progen, so he is now in the victory lab as well. So his run will finish shortly also. Also, Chucky, just gonna have to ask you there, in the fight against Tunnel Cleaner, you opted out to get rid of the Charge Blaster, and we are, theorizing why that was. So could you go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit?
On which part, sorry?
On the Tunnel Cleaner, where you still had the Charge Blaster from Chapter 4?
Yeah, we felt like you would...
No, there's a perfectly good reason for that, and I have made the mistake before. When going for the double bomb setup, those bullets can still go forward, and if it hits the eye, it closes it off, which could lead to the bombs just crashing into him and doing nothing.
I love it. That's what I called out. I figured that's probably what it was, but thank you for confirming. I figured that I was like, I saw you take the damage. I'm like, that looked like an intentional toe bump for getting rid of that.
Yeah, usually when the bombs start coming out, I'll usually always take one hit just to take the phase damage for when the close bomb starts firing out its flames. But because I had 2 hits left on, I had to take another intentional hit somewhere just to prevent the gun from messing the fight over, basically. So took a jump into him, then I kind of mistimed hitting the eye. Luckily, I had enough damage thanks to the gun.
All right, we've got Mashia finishing up here. Boonk. All right, we've got a finish time on stream of 1:03:02. We've got a finished racetime.gg time of 1:03:04. Big congrats to Mashia. So yeah, our runners are done for today, but down but not out for Mashia. Mashia is going to be going back down to the lower bracket, or not back down, down to the lower bracket, and is going to be awaiting their opponent.
Yeah, but I think we can just reiterate now how close, well, how good of a race this whole thing was, because even though there was quite a markedly difference between Misha and Chuck, like in this race right now, the times are still phenomenal. Like if you were trying to do this speedrun by yourself, let me reassure you that your times would probably not be even close to that, unless you really put in a lot of practice and a lot of effort into doing that. So yeah, I mean, what we just saw is basically, peak Cyber Shadow. Kind of actually in both ways, because we saw a pretty much flawless run on Chucky's side and a little bit of a mess up on Mishia's side, but still, he took like quite a few deaths, but he still finished this run around an hour. So you can definitely say that the parts that did went good went really, really good.
And that's just it. And I mean, like, Mashia's going to have another chance. They're awaiting their opponent. The winner of that match is going to come back up to the upper bracket for the finals. Finals is going to be a exciting time because we're going to work off, I think, a best of 3 based on what we discussed with runners. A lot of them seem to favor that because, as we know, and as we saw today, Cyber Shadow can happen. And leaving the finals after such an epic tournament up to 1 match would... I feel like it would fall flat. So in a scenario like that, we're going to have Turkey, you're going to be moving on comfortably to the finals. You get to rest now and await your opponent as the lower bracket finishes out. When that match comes to be, we're going to have a best of 3. If Turkey were to win, that would be the end of the tournament. Or if the person from the lower bracket were to take the best of 3, then we would have a reset and we would have another best of 3. Regardless, we still have plenty of Cyber Shadow for you folks upcoming in the tournament, and even today we've got another match that's going on later today at 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Atlantic, and that's going to be between Kyle Berry and Minnie. So hang tight, grab yourself some food, hydrate, do whatever you need to do, and be back in a couple hours. Thank you guys for helping out today. Make sure to follow the runners. As always, we have the runners there in the link. The runner links there in the chat. And of course, follow my co-commentary as well. And any last words today, guys?
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for, this awesome race. It was like a treat to watch. Thank you to the whole community. And I guess I'll see you guys around.
I'm just going to say, A, need to lie down, and B, need to prepare for a lot more Cyber Shadow if it's a best of 3. Oh god. That's a lot to try and keep focus on. We'll do what we can, but cheers for all stopping by. Hope you had a good time watching, and yeah, that's all I can really say. Just hope you had fun.